Hi everyone, welcome to Owl City Homestead. It is a beautiful sunny afternoon in February and I'm glad to be here today to share with you all about one of my favorite plants. It's an herb, both medicinal and edible, and it is beautiful. It gives one of the only truly blue flowers I've ever seen, and it is called borage. Another name for it is starflower because that's what the little blue flowers look like. And borage has so many benefits to it. Both because it attracts bees to your vegetable garden, but also for you personally. And today I want to share with you about borage and all the good it can do for you. Plus, it's super easy to grow. Well, hi ladies. Are you gonna watch me today as I'm working here? Yeah? So right outside my chicken run is my herb garden. It runs the length about, I think this is like 30 feet long or a little more. And right here I've got my borage plants. Now I had one large borage plant here last year, and it has, as they are wont to do, self-seeded. And we have a lot of borage plants here. Some are bigger than others. And hopefully I haven't waited too long on these big ones to transplant them. Because one thing about borage is it has a very deep taproot, and that taproot develops super quickly. So if you actually sow borage seeds, as I did the first time a few years ago, you really do want to transplant them quickly. I would say that this size right here is the biggest you should let them get if you want to be sure that you don't damage the taproot when you transplant it. But I'm going to try with these too, because I did put them off, and that's because it was pouring rain and freezing cold for us here in Zone 9B. It was down at 23 degrees for a few days last week. I'm so glad the sun's back and the warmer temperatures. But yeah, I put it off because of that. I don't like to work out in the cold and rain. So I waited for a sunnier day, and hopefully that's not too late. So a few things about the borage. If we get in close, perhaps you can see that these plants have what's known as hairy leaves. All those little specks, they're like little spines actually, so they're kind of prickly. When they're really young, they look fuzzy, which is kind of cute. But as they get older, they get pricklier and pricklier. So you want to kind of avoid handling the leaves once they get big. The other really interesting thing about borage is their flower. And they are called starflower, as I said, because their little blue flowers, as this picture I'll show you of the plant in bloom shows, look like little shiny stars. Now the borage like to be grown in full sun to part shade, and I've grown them in both places and they've done great in both places. So feel free to experiment with that. I think mine got a little bigger when they had a little more sun, but they lasted longer over here where they get partial shade. It is shadier right now than it is during the summer, of course, but still they did better, lasted all the way through October, actually, still blooming over here in this area where it gets some afternoon shade, as opposed to out in my more open garden where it's full sun all day long into the evening. There, they didn't bloom as late into the fall, but they did get bigger. Now, the trick about borage is when they're about 6 inches tall, you pinch them back and then they'll grow bushier. They'll grow some big branches out to the sides. And then also about midsummer, cut them back halfway and they will grow more and bloom yet again. So that's nice to know. I did not know that the first year, so I just had one bloom, but now I know you can cut them back. Actually, one year I got 3 blooms out of them. It really depends on how long your growing season is. There are a lot of uses for borage, and as I replant these, I will tell you about them. So, what you might have heard about borage is that they are nitrogen fixers for your soil, which is great for other plants. And that's true. So, if any leaves break off from your borage plants at any time, you should not throw them away. You can do one of two things with leaves from borage plants. You can bury them in the soil, chop them up a bit and bury them. By the way, right now I'm digging down with my little shovel deep on the side of these plants because I don't want to break their taproots. And I'm just kind of prying them out from the side. And that seems to be working. And, oh, here comes the first one. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so you can see that it's got a long taproot, but at this stage, it has not gotten thick. And so that's going to be a perfect little transplant. I'm going to break off this one that maybe a slug got to or a caterpillar and put it down there, and this one. I don't have to, but I'm going to because, as I was saying, with the leaves of borage plants, you can chop them and bury them, and they make absolutely great fertilizer. And they will break down and slowly release all their goodness and nutrition, nitrogen and otherwise, into the soil. The other way you can use them as ongoing fertilizer is to put their leaves in a bucket of water for about 2 weeks, and then use that water, 1 part water from the leaves and 10 parts water. That's what they say. I just actually use it straight. So you can extend it by diluting it with more water, or you can just use it straight, and it makes a great liquid fertilizer. So you can see I've dug this one up too. Now its taproot is pretty thick already. It's about almost the size of my pinky finger in diameter, and it has another extensive side root. It has very fibrous roots, and that's another way it's great for your soil. The plant itself, as it's growing, aerates your soil quite a bit with its fibrous root system, and that's always good for your soil. That's a big one that I'm going to plant out in my garden. I'm going to take off a couple of the lower leaves that are yellowing. Again, I'll be using them elsewhere in the garden. Okay, looks like there are 2 more large plants here, and they just don't have any room to grow here in this like little corner. Here's one. So when it's this deep, it doesn't really hurt if you break them off a little bit. Look at how long that is. Can you guys even see? It's about 20 inches long, I'd say. So that's going to be a great transplant. And the last one, this is very loose, well-draining soil here, which is what they like. Evenly moist. This bed has turned out to be really good for herbs, all different kinds of herbs. It's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 beds. 5 double beds is what it is. Very simple to put in place here next to this chicken run. Oh, I thought this one would be easy, but it actually goes down quite a bit here. Okay, I'm going to come at it from the other side. Okay, I think I got it. Well, I broke a little bit on purpose just to get it out of there, but I left most of it intact. So there we have another one. So 4 larger plants. Now I have these small ones over here that should be a lot easier to take out. So yes, you can put the leaves in water like I do with my collard plant leaves. Those also make a great liquid fertilizer for your other vegetables. But yes, borage, same thing. So another one. And looks like 1 more of these. And then I have something I just found yesterday. I hadn't really noticed it before. There's another one. Is right down here where I've been throwing these leaves that I cut. I'll show you what is down here. You see all those little seedlings? And there's some that are covered here by dirt that I've just knocked out of the bed, but these are probably a dozen or 2 dozen little tiny borage seedlings that I'm going to dig up and plant somewhere else. Oh my gosh, look at that. I mean, it just has its 2 basic leaves right now, and it already has that big root. Yep, definitely going to pot those up. See you in a sec. So this little seedling is about 4 inches long roots. It has 4 leaves on the top. And we're going to plant it in this 1-gallon pot. Because I found last year that if I had a plant, even a very large plant, a couple huge cherry tomato plants I did this way, in a 1-gallon pot, and I set this and nestle it into a bigger bed, the roots just grow out the bottom and grow into that bed, and it does marvelous. So I know that this borage plant will do the same thing. So I'm going to plant all the little ones in 1-gallon buckets like this, and I'm going to take the bigger ones, the medium-sized ones like this, and the really big ones like this, and plant them in some of my actual beds. So here we go. Okay, I'm going to plant these big ones in this bed, which right now has about 50 red onions in it. I think they're the red ones. I'd have to actually look back to see, but pretty sure they're the red ones. I'm going to put them in here. I'm going to plant some, I think a couple of tomato plants on either side of this plant right here, which you can't really see. Let me show you. Right there. That's a society garlic. And I'm going to plant a couple of tomatoes. I'm not sure if they're going to be Brad's Atomic tomatoes or some kind of cherry tomato. I don't know, but some kind of tomato, because something cool about borage is that it's a great companion plant for tomatoes. All right, pardon me while I dig down deep in here for this long taproot to go into the ground. Apparently they make tomatoes flavor taste even better than it normally does. Oh, well, that sounds good to me. This is looking really good here. Okay, now we're going to plant the second one. And you're supposed to plant these about 6 inches apart. I'm going to actually go a little farther on this. I'm going to go about 1 foot, I think. And this ground is so soft, I can just dig right into it. Nice and fluffy. And get that taproot down in there. Make sure to water after you transplant anything, even though the ground is pretty moist. You want to give any transplants a good watering in. Okay, I'm going to put these 2 medium-sized plants right in here. These cabbages, they really haven't done anything. I mean, I'm leaving them because maybe they'll take off now in February and March, and I'll have a spring crop, but they didn't really get big over the winter. I had some other red cabbages that have done much better, but I'll leave these in for now. Who knows what they might do. If they don't do something though, by April, out they go. All right, put this other one in right here. These are looking really nice, and they are going to bring a nice bright spot of color to my garden early this spring, which is great. But what else can borage plants do for you besides attract the bees, besides build your soil and fertilize your plants? Well, as I mentioned, they're edible and medicinal. So let's talk about that. So borage plants can be made into a really nice tea. Both their leaves and their little blossoms can be made into tea. And the tea is really great for colds, all the discomfort symptoms that come with colds, for the breathing issues you might have with colds, for the fever you might get with a cold. In fact, eating the leaves of borage is said to be really good for basically a fever of any kind and breathing issues of any kind, even asthma. Another thing it's said to be good for is inflammation. Probably the thing borage is most well known for, though, is its ability to produce a feeling of courage, or even some say euphoria, a real sense of positive well-being. which for me is its biggest benefit, and I actually have found that to be quite true. And the reason that works is because borage stimulates the production of adrenaline. So now you can see why it might make you feel courageous and just a sense that everything is going well for you and you can actually do anything. Well, you know, almost anything. It's not going to make you have superpowers, but it does make you feel really good about yourself and about the potential for what you can do and, you know, what the day holds. And whether I've used borage in a tea or in the other way that you can eat it, which is as part of a salad, you can actually use both the leaves and the blossoms in a salad, or you can saute them in olive oil or butter or steam them. And a really interesting fact about borage is that when you steam it, like you would steam, say, kale or spinach, the fuzzy or prickliness of the leaves disappears. That's kind of weird, and I don't know the science behind it, but it's true. So yes, you can definitely use the leaves in salads and in these other ways I've mentioned. And even if you don't feel the actual benefits that I've talked about, you will enjoy the taste probably. Borage is known to have a mild cucumber-like taste, especially if you're using the young tender leaves. And while the blossoms are edible, like with all flowers that are edible, which are many, you don't want to, go overboard on it. They're more of an accent, and you can use them as a garnish, those blossoms or the leaves, like you would, say, parsley or mint in various drinks. They're known to be really good with Bloody Marys, or with desserts or soups. So many ways you can use it as an edible and a medicinal. So as I mentioned, the borage plant produces many gorgeous flowers throughout the summer and into the fall. And if you cut them back halfway through the summer, you're going to get a second bloom. These plants are going to get big and bushy, and you're going to have a ton of leaves. So if you find yourself with, say, too many to eat at one time, well, just know that you can dry them. You can dry them on the counter, in the fridge, in the oven, or in a dehydrator. And they will be preserved for future use in teas. And that's the way I've used them when I've dried them. But you could probably also add them to soups and stews and get the benefit and the taste that way. So I ended up planting many in pots, many little ones, and many in different beds around here, and some over in my herb garden. And I think that's going to be great this spring. So thanks for joining me today, everyone, and I hope that you will give borage a try. Maybe even do a cover crop of it like I'm going to do come this fall. Maybe plant a tomato bed with borage as a companion plant. Or maybe, just maybe, have a few here and there to enjoy the flowers and later chop into the ground as a fertilizer. But whatever you decide, you really can't go wrong with borage. It's gonna help you in your garden no matter how you use it. And probably it's gonna self-sow and come back again next spring. So good luck to you as you go about planting your herb garden. There are so much to pick from, and definitely borage should be at the top of the list. Before you go, just remember, you can create the life and the garden that you want to create, whatever that might be, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Have a great week, everyone.